obviously emotions must be pretty raw at the moment, but how do you reflect on the team's performance over the past 4 days?
Yeah, currently a lot going through the mind, but I think I kind of made peace with it last night. Whether it was today or tomorrow, it was always going to be a tough pill to swallow. But yeah, not a lot of positives. There are a few, but quite a few. The negatives outweigh the positives currently. Yeah, pretty weak performance, I'd say. In conditions which I really felt were pretty, in favour of really good Test cricket. So yeah, pretty disappointed on how things ended up. Whether it was today or tomorrow, I still wanted to see us with a fighting chance going out and still giving the Aussies a bit of a tough time with really taking pride in our wickets. And yeah, the way it unfolded is quite disappointing.
You mentioned a few positives. What are some of the positives?
Nokia is the one that obviously jumps out. Carl Verheyen is obviously, he's really batted well in this test. So those are obviously the two standout performers that I would say are the biggest positives going into the next one. Yeah, a lot more negatives, but I'll keep them to myself for now.
Dean, are you concerned about the future of Test cricket in South Africa? And we've all written about there's 28 tests in the next 4-year cycle, deprioritisation of it, less first-class games. Could this be the start of a spiral that you might find very difficult to get out of?
Hopefully that spiral can come to an end come next season, where first-class cricket will be looked after better. I know that is in the plans that we do potentially have more first-class cricket back home. Yeah, it's a tough one. I got to bite my tongue here a little bit, but
Why you got to bite your tongue? Is there
well, if I tell you, then it's pretty pointless me biting my tongue, right? I like where you're going with that, but you're not that stupid. Yeah, it's also scheduling going forward for the next 5 years. I've been going on about it that we need to be playing more Test cricket, and our players at the moment need to be exposed to this level. Even though you take in the hidings that we have had in this in the first 2 tests and the England series that we had, our players need to be exposed to that. And unfortunately, we are learning most probably in the most ruthless and brutal way. And I think there are more learnings out of this than going out and playing against a team that's of similar strength and we beat them. So there are a few defining factors that I can still take forward, but yeah, I would still love for our guys to be exposed to more of this, and obviously so that those guys can be fast-tracked in the international arena. But yeah, it is a tough one. Again, I'm not a admin guy, I'm a cricket player. I can only ask for what I feel is right for cricket going forward in South Africa. Yeah, and then the rest is up to those guys to make those decisions.
And you said before the first test, it's going to take courage to succeed here. Have you seen enough of that in the group, and is there enough there to muster something in the final test?
I don't think there has been a lot of it. I think there's been a lot more with the ball in hand. Take away the Gabba result, just purely out of this, the MCG test. I think a lot more character was shown with the ball, even though the Aussies battered us into the ground. I really saw a lot of characters come out in our bowling ranks. Maybe not as much in our batting. I mentioned like Carl, he's maybe the one guy that's put up 2 decent performances in this test. Yeah, it's a tough one to digest currently, but if we did this in 2 days' time, I'm sure I could have given you a lot more feedback.
How do you spend the time with the batters? It's been a cumulative effect over quite a period of time now. You've only got to turn around. Learning on the job is really difficult, and taking big downs is hard. How do you turn it around?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Do you have an answer for me? I'd like to take that next door and then use that as well. I think you just got to keep going at what you started with when you came here. For me, it's about that positive affirmation that you have to give to the greater group. I'm not going to go away from that, because I still feel the guys that we have here are talented cricketers and hardened first-class cricketers, but they obviously just lacking that experience at the test level. You still got to show faith in them, and hopefully that turns things around. As a saying in cricket, you're only one knock away from being back in form, and got to believe that. For me, it's not just a cliche. I think there's a lot of merit in that. So yeah, I think going forward, it's going to be that positive affirmation again. You have to still keep the encouragement and keep reminding the guys that they're not crap cricketers. Let's put it that way, to be blunt. So yeah, going forward, that will be the total approach. Again, you can hit as many balls as you want. It's not going to change as a cricketer. I think the game's 80-20, 80 in the mind, 20% skill. And at the moment now, that applies quite highly for our batting group.
How do you rate this Australian team? I mean, do you say that are they the best in the world at the moment?
I didn't play against the other guys, but the bowling unit's definitely up there. I've experienced the previous era of bowlers that Australia produced, and it's difficult to separate the two units. They're both equally as strong, and they obviously possess a massive skill at this level. Yeah, but this one's really consistent, extremely consistent. Not saying that the previous group wasn't consistent, they were pretty consistent themselves, but just out of the performances that they're turning in day in and day out, this current group is up there, no doubt.
Is there any weakness that you detected?
Is there any?
Is there a weakness in this team that you detected?
Well, I think the thing about Test cricket is you want to push bowlers into their third and fourth spells, and then you see what they have. But we're not getting to that position in the game, which is quite disappointing, because I always feel that might be a weakness in most bowling lineups. If guys are really tired, and if you're pushing them into those longer spells, into their fourth spell where you really need a lot more energy. And currently we're not getting there. So yeah, it's difficult to gauge or judge what they might have if they are pushed into those longer spells.
On that front, you've been targeting, trying to exploit the fact that Australia were one bowler down and had another bust a finger, and as an aside, was Mitchell Starc seemingly just as usual when he was bowling?
Can you say that again, please?
Sorry, just were you trying to target the fact that Australia were at least a bowler down with Canberra injured, and to exploit the fact that they may have to go into reserves, use some part-timers, and sort of, as on a related note, how did you view Mitchell Starc's performance, given he was injured?
Yeah, he's quality. He's been quality for, if not his whole career. So he's always going to be one of those characters that stands up if he can bowl at 70%. And he did that in this test, and obviously he really brought the heat when the times were right. Look, if he didn't bowl, maybe that was an opportunity for us to try and at least get a draw, and maybe push them into a late day 5 result. But yeah, in saying that, they only needed the 3 seamers, and I think when they're on song and things are going their way, they're always going to be a handful for most batting units. But and then obviously you got Nathan Lyon, who would have bowled a lot more if Starc wasn't available to bowl. So, and he's always going to be a threat, especially with the wicket that's offering now and then the inconsistent spin, which is always going to keep him in the game. But yeah, we didn't, again, go back to the question earlier, like we didn't push them into their third or fourth and maybe even fifth spells. And then maybe that might have assisted us to stretch the game out a little bit longer. Yeah, but I mean, when the game's finished before the third session on day 3, or day 4, you're not really going to be exploiting the opposition too much, really.
Next one, we'll look to take last round of questions.
Dean Elgar finishes the year as equal leading wicket taker with Nathan Lyon. Do you think he's feeling the pinch after a big 12 months, or would you have expected a bit more from him so far, what you've seen in this series?
KG?
Yeah.
KG is 100% or nothing kind of cricketer, especially with the ball in hand. He pushes his body to the ultimate extremes that a fast bowler can do, and maybe he has had a long summer. I don't know. That's obviously something that we need to discuss. going forward. But knowing him, the character that he is, he wants to push himself until he breaks, and hopefully that doesn't happen. But yeah, he's had a really tough summer as well. He's been carrying the brunt of our bowlers as well. So you got to bear that in mind, that maybe that does play into maybe a few niggles now and then. I mean, he's not a youngster anymore. It seems like he's a youngster, but he's really not. He's been around 8-9 years now, and I think of those years he's been pushing himself to the max. And he is a 3-formatted cricketer as well, where he plays all 3 formats. So if there are a few niggles and he's not 100% all the time, that's kind of understandable. But yeah, knowing him, he's always going to say there's nothing wrong. That's just the character he is, and he lives for Test cricket. He loves playing Test cricket. So yeah, I'm sure he's maybe a little bit tired because of our first innings that we had here at the MCG. Most of us were pretty tired after fielding on that day too. But yeah, as a cricketer, KG is always going to rise up.
Sorry, it's been asked before. We spoke a lot about pride in the post-match presentation, and going to Sydney. How much of that South African pride has been hurt, and how much can you kind of rally the rest of the team around that and get a result your way in Sydney?
Well, that's what we're playing for come the third test. Playing for the badge, playing for the pride of our team. I said 2-1 sounds better than 3-0. So we got to believe that we can still bounce back and put up a massive effort for the third test. But yeah, playing for pride is of utmost for us going forward now. I'm sure there's a lot of guys hurting next door, I can tell you that. So going forward, I'm sure the conversations are going to be one of, that's what we're playing for now. We're playing for this badge, and we need to try and restore a little bit of pride that maybe has been hurt over the last 2 weeks.
And does that mean bringing in some of the guys who haven't played a part, like almost like a fresh start for the new year?
Possibly. You're asking me questions I haven't even asked yet. So yeah, possibly going forward. I know we've got a lot of fresh guys on the bench, and they'll be very keen to get going, even if it's a one match for them. So sometimes that is a breath of fresh air that you need going into a really important test match for us still. So yeah, the options are still there.
Okay, we'll go last one if not.
I'm sorry this is being asked as well, but kind of relating to that too. You said before this test that it was consistent messaging and the messaging didn't change. But after something like this, does it change? Do you try something different?
I think your generic messaging needs to stay the same. But yeah, I guess you might have to tinker here and there. But again, we know where we're falling short, that's the thing. And yeah, the harder you try, sometimes the more you fail around it. But yeah, I'm definitely not going to change my messaging going forward. There might be a few added extras that you speak about as a group. But yeah, I think currently now let's just let things simmer down and move on to Sydney.